Let's talk about the Silver Lion winner, the voice of Hind Rajab. This one is about the events that took place on January 29th in 2024. The Red Crescent volunteers receive an emergency call. A 6-year-old girl is trapped in a car under fire in Gaza, pleading for rescue. While trying to keep her on the line, they do everything they can to get an ambulance to her. Her name was Hind Rajab. Movie is from the director who was in the awards circle as well with I think 2 years ago, Four Daughters premiered at Cannes, Kauter Ben Hania, and tells a story that we are all too familiar with our social feeds through the news of the genocide that is happening in Gaza, perpetrated by the IDF, by Israel. I don't even know where to properly jump into thoughts in this film, because there's too much context to give for a film like this, because how far back do you start with all of it? But ultimately it comes down to hearing the real voice of a 6-year-old kid who was murdered alongside emergency helpers, alongside her family. It's a depressing movie. It's an urgent movie. We discussed this already. Unfortunately, something that a movie like this doesn't change anything. It's not like you haven't seen more than plenty the amount of images and stories that you've heard of people under the violence in Gaza that you need convincing. It is also unique in the way that it uses the actual recordings of that call with Hind Rajab as a reference point, not just to be informed for someone else to do the lines over. It's literally those calls that you hear play out in the movie, which is something that is also incredibly powerful all around. I think it's like what I said, it feels like something that transcends a bit the score, the movie score for a movie. It just feels like a very important film, much like No Other Land was last year. Kevin, I'll hand it over to you. What do you want to say about the voice of Hind Rajab?
I think it's sort of obvious that I'm not as involved in the conflict of Gaza, Israel as Ewan is, because Ewan is very heavily invested in it. Only really with Rose, the Settlers, it is that I've sort of gotten more and more into it, if you can sort of refer to it as that. Really looking at the voice of Hind Rajab as a movie, because the topic, the situation can easily be sort of above the movie itself. I said to Ewan, would it be justified that the voice of Hind Rajab got the golden lion if it was a 6 or a 7 out of 10 movie? Then that would be a whole another conversation, right? But the voice of Hind Rajab is an immaculate, fantastic piece of cinema that rightfully so is justified by calling it the most important movie of now, of its time. But as a movie, for me, it was sort of getting stale in the middle, because it does follow the story from only a operation call center. Also, as a quick context, this movie got announced, I believe, in April or May. So this movie only really has had a 4-month production thing. Obviously, pre-production, we don't know, because the director did have contact with the mother or the family of Hind Rajab.
And the Red Crescent.
And the Red Crescent. So it absolutely has gone to the right channels to justify the existence of this movie. It's not just an exploitation story of Hind Rajab, which is obviously obvious by the use of the Hind Rajab's actual voice. As a movie, it is sort of, for me, the guilty in Gaza, because you stay in this operation call center. You do have, at a certain point, one of the operation callers going into his boss's office being like, we need to save her, we need to save her, we need to save her. So in that regard, it does get a bit repetitive. It is only 90 minutes as well. But then the movie pulls out a certain card that I have not yet seen in this medium, which involves the use of a mobile phone and real-life footage that is playing on it during a scene that is sort of imitating said real-life footage. It is not done perfectly, which only adds to the reality of it, right? Like someone smoking a bit too late, or just those little small things. And that is the part that floored me. Yeah, that is the part that floored me.
Through that, it doesn't feel like it is just actors, doing a great performance. There's some reality to it as well, where by the end of this, you feel like the lead characters in this did go through something similar than they did in the actual emergence. Like it feels like there's a true horror and an urgency in their performances as well. There's a couple of notes that I think are really interesting from her director's statement. The way that she went about this, she had another project going, then heard the recordings, because they did put it out on social media, which is partly also what they do in the movie. This is where you get the recording as well, that they like imitate by filming it and then basically like fake filming, right? That sort of blend. It's a deliberate choice on her end to stay in the single location, to let the violence remain off screen, because she says, like I said in the intro, there's plenty of that already around that we've seen. It is then way more about what she wanted to focus on the invisible, the sort of thing that you said gets repetitive, which I don't really agree with, that like it gets stale for me. That wasn't really an issue for me. It's the waiting, the fear, the unbearable sound of silence when help doesn't come. And then she goes on to say, I cannot accept a world where a child calls for help and no one comes. That pain, that failure belongs to all of us. The story is not just about Gaza, it speaks to a universal grief, and I believe that fiction, especially when it draws from verified, painful, real events, is cinema's most powerful tool. More powerful than the noise of breaking news or the forgetfulness of scrolling. Cinema can preserve a memory. Cinema can resist amnesia. May Hind Rajab Rajab's voice be heard. And I'm personally, I'm someone who's built close to water, as they say in a German expression. I don't know if that's actually an English one, but I get emotionally involved and cry pretty easily. I'm just almost choking up just reading this again.
Well, by the way, about the staleness of it, I know it can sound quite, cruel. But for example, there is a certain moment that he does go back into his boss's office, and the boss actually explains to him the sort of chain of communication they have to go to. And in terms of a movie structure, that's the sort of thing I'm looking for that keeps the movie going. So it's like a nitpick. It's also, in hindsight,
it works as a confrontation for them, that maybe that probably happened in real life, but it also gives you context as to what the Red Crescent does. So like if that's one-to-one what happened there isn't really relevant. So I hear criticism for the structure of the movie. Definitely there. I just wasn't an issue for me, because I was sitting in this sort of thing. I at one point wrote down in my notes, because I obviously knew about the real life story. I heard about it while it was happening in 2024. Is that I wrote down a couple of times, like, is she dead? Is she already dead? Because we don't know in the movie, and it is like it pretty.
They often don't know.
And they often don't know, and I feel like I also didn't know like exactly what happened, because I heard the recordings. I didn't know about the specific order of things, like how it played out, I don't know. It's really depressing as well reading more about this, because just earlier this year in March, when they ended the ceasefire, it was only about like 2 months of that in the middle of January, and then they broke it on the 18th. They actually killed 15 Red Crescent workers. They were ambushed and killed near Rafah. Where also this movie is taking place more up in the north, and the Red Crescent Center is within Israeli side, I guess, the settler side, somewhere. I don't know the exact location. But they kill people in ambulances and a fire truck and a UN vehicle, because they frequently labeled back to 2002. They labeled these as like threats where the IDF thinks that they are like transporting terrorists in them. That moment as well, where the boss points to like the people printed out, like all of the workers who are ambulance or the ambulances, and they have one left, because like he says like he's not willing to add more pictures to the in memorial side. Like shit, that stuff is like really powerful.
And if all that information and real images and news doesn't hit you, I mean, even at the end of the movie, they hit you with the actual pictures, the actual car. I'm not gonna, spoil it, but once you see the car that Hind Rajab was in, you're still like, holy fuck. Without a doubt, it'll be the most impactful movie of 2025. I gave it a 9 out of 10. If you can quantify a movie like this, which we will do, because that's just the way, rating and criticizing movie work. You gave it a 9 out of 10 as well, and it was.
I checked my notes as well. I gave it like a 9.5 in my like right in the theater, but I think I didn't want to put it above some of the other ones that I gave like a higher ranking to.
Yeah,
my rating would probably be though a 9.5 out of 10.
And our jury grade was a 4.1 out of 5, which obviously naturally there are only a few movies that made it above that 4 out of 5 mark in our jury grade, so makes it one of the highest rated movies in our jury grade. And of the festival, I mean, hell, even on Letterboxd, if I just go there, the highest
5-star ratings,
for all 5-star ratings, actually has gotten a rating now, which is 4.0. The Voice of Hind Rajab. If you're gonna seek out a movie this year that is very topical, let it be The Voice of Hind Rajab, so her voice gets amplified and gets heard even louder and louder throughout the world, even after her unfortunate passing.
On that note, before we close it out on, is another thing of the way that No Other Land's rollout was handled, where that was not screened in the US.
Or had no distributor.
Recently is in the UN, in that meeting that they recently had about like acknowledging Palestine's existence and the way that they are currently working on, like, saying two-state solution is a thing. The United States was among the very few nations who were opposed to it, where like everyone else seemingly in the world, a couple of like African nations, I think, and Israel, of course, were against it. United States remains at the core. But also, if you look at like the opinion pieces, the polls, it is very much the United States where a lot of people still side with Israel on this conflict, which is honestly so fucking concerning. But the difference it has compared to No Other Land is that it has Hollywood names like Joaquin Phoenix, Rooney Mara, who attended the premiere, Brad Pitt, Alfonso Cuarón, Jonathan Glazer, who already spoke out when he won his award for The Look of Silence. The Zone of Interest, and got heavily criticized for that, right? You got these people hopefully having an impact here that in the States as well, where this conflict seems to be still something that is talked down on, that it's not acknowledged, that it's a genocide, that people get to see this film, because I feel like the States needs this the most.
You also got a letter recently that like I don't remember the number, but like that 4,000 people at least signed a certain letter, or like a promise that they wouldn't work with any Israeli affiliated companies.
Yeah.
So obviously this film will still be in the conversation for a long time. And I'm glad we were one of the first ones that are able to see this movie as well at the Venice Film Festival and can actually contribute to this film's discourse.
Mm-hmm. Well said.